It's easy for us to say that someone else is amazing when they gather their strength and willpower in order to achieve great things. Instead, we should take the lessons we learn from them and apply it to our own lives. Open our eyes to our own potential. Welcome to the Defending Vision podcast, where this blind man shows you exactly how he sees it. Hardship, humor, and keeping a vision alive. Throw on some headphones for the full audio experience. Today, we continue our conversation with Daria Zawadzki and Isaac Lidsky. Go back to the previous episode to hear part 1 of our discussion if you missed it. Welcome to the conversation. On a lighter note, I suppose, so today, both of you are married with children. I think probably just about every blind person has had the thought of how is anybody going to really look past this. But it sounds like, both of you did find someone. What was the moment where you said, okay, this person has really looked past it and just sees me for me?
Well, I mean, I love that question because Joe and I have been together for 30 years, and we met when we were 20. We're 50 this year, and
Awesome.
It was never an issue for him. And I couldn't have contemplated that. Like, it didn't make sense to me for years. I had to accept it. It took me longer, than it took him, and I really think that's what real love is. Not meaning to sound cheesy, because everyone comes with a mixed bag of stuff, So.
Sure.
I think anyone, regardless of what it is, can find someone, and there's no guarantees for anyone. So,
Right.
But definitely, I felt very, very lucky to have met someone, where it just wasn't an issue. That was not an issue. And on the contrary, like he will tell me at least that he's very proud of how I navigate my life, and he thinks it's amazing. So it's not only is it not a detriment, it's something that he thinks is special. So
Sure.
I don't know if Isaac wants to interject before I turn into like a Hallmark card over here.
I like it. That's great.
No, I would say I've had a very similar experience with Dorothy. I mean, to the extent that she's often helped lead, the sort of identification of areas for improvement and the integration of new solutions and that kind of thing. She's has a very practical view of those things, and she tells me she likes spending time with me. I don't know, but
Dorothy rocks.
the hardest thing for me, I think, really was and is, frankly, still is, having children, particularly young children,
Mm-hmm.
who like to, horseplay and throw a ball and, do all sorts of stuff that, there are adaptive solutions and things like that for, but that doesn't mean they're easy,
Right.
or even particularly enjoyable for someone
Mm-hmm.
without sight. So, for me, it's really more about the toughest thing for me is fears that I'm not, enough for my children, or too much of one thing, not enough of the other,
Mm-hmm.
or, somehow limited in my abilities to be a father. Of course, they assure me otherwise. They're very good children. They're very loving. I'm immensely proud of them.
And probably in many ways a fear that every parent has.
I was going to say,
but it's easy to name a very particular reason in your case, right? It's easy
Matt,
to say, this is my concern.
That's a very profound point you make there, Matt. And I think I have always felt like that precise point kind of lies at the distinction between trying to find power and strength in the experiences we go through versus vulnerability and weakness. And one might even make the argument that we are fortunate to the extent that much of the fear and anxiety, fight or flight, all that subconscious stuff that's going on, in the lizard brain, that everybody has in this world.
Sure.
I mean, it's just part of being a human. We have the benefit of, knowing the first place to look when we're trying to unpack it and sort it out
Yep.
and rise above. So
Yeah.
it's again, there's pros and cons to everything in life. Nothing is just bad or just good. I mean, things just are, and they have their positive and negative qualities or whatever. And so, anyway, one of the benefits, I guess, of having something so severe as this that is, on the one hand, lets you like Daria was just saying. On the one hand, lets you not sweat the small stuff, so to
Mhm.
speak, which is phenomenal.
Right.
And on the other hand, with the not small stuff, the huge stuff, it's usually not a huge mystery where it's coming from. You can go first to that whole inner monologue of saying, okay, well, does this have to do with the fact that I'm confronting a situation without sight or have
Mm-hmm.
confronted, and what exactly am I afraid of? And how
Sure.
exactly can I make it better for myself? And a lot of people don't have that luxury.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad you two have figured out parenting first, because I hopefully one day I'll be calling you for advice.
Hey,
um, what would
phone's
you say
always
has been the
available
hardest
to you.
part
I
of
can't
of
wait,
raising children?
Matt.
Yeah, well,
I'm all
well,
up in Matt's business.
don't hold your breath, Daria, but I appreciate your interest.
No, I'm very excited for the babies to come.
Right.
Matt had a shabby Stanford degree and electrical engineering career, so
Ah,
we're talking to a slacker. I do want to say one shout out. Speaking
Yeah.
of pros and cons, while on the one hand it's terrifying the thought of having 3 kids diagnosed, we had each other. So I want a shout
Mm.
out to our older sister Alana, who we call Noosh, who also has RP and
Mhm.
has been, of course, part of this journey with us. And then we have a younger sighted sister, Ro, who has navigated that role and has really been there for us. So I think
Sure.
we had so many blessings in that call. My parents, of course, who were amazing advocates for us. So I always just feel
Right.
like we want to pay it forward because we have so many gifts and resources and silver linings in our lives that a lot of people
Right.
are
Right.
not as fortunate to have, and that's really when it's a struggle, right? Eyes, like we talk about feeling a little bit like that
sure.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah.
Look, I mean, most of the people in this world live on less than $1 a day. Uh, I mean, countless. 1 in 6 children in Orlando, Florida. Lest you think this is a third world issue we're talking about here. 1 in 6 children in Orlando, Florida, Central Florida, is food insecure.
Mhm.
The most basic diseases that we've vanquished here in the States, or we are easily treatable, kill untold millions of people around the world every day. It's just hard to look at someone who's been, in Daria, in my case, born to a middle class family in America, to parents who loved us and nurtured us, cared for our education. Uh, we had each other along the way, as Daria says. And you say, like, would I take the hand I was dealt in this sort of
Right.
universe or whatever and throw it back and draw another hand? And say,
Mhm.
absolutely not. That'd
Right.
be crazy. That
Right.
would be a losing proposition. So then well, then how bad can I feel for myself about this whole blindness stuff? And that's not to say that there aren't times when you do feel bad. It's only natural. You mourn, right? You mourn the things you've
Yep.
lost. You mourn the things you don't have.
For sure.
But I think to Darren, tell me if I'm way off base, but I think that's kind of some of what you're getting at in terms of, like,
Yeah.
who are we to complain or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's good to always keep that perspective, and of course, be able to have those make room for the
Oh yeah.
angry or rough moments, of course, but always
Yep.
with that perspective in the background keeps you on track.
Right.
Which in all candor, I failed to do for a while. I don't think I left enough space for myself to say, yes, all of those things that I just said are true, and not but. This is the
Mhm.
critical thing. And it can still really suck to be blind, and I can have bad days, and I can feel real lonely or frustrated or sad.
Yeah.
Both of
And
those things can be true at
there
the
can be
same time.
moments where you say, "I really wish I could see X, Y, or Z. I wish I
Oh,
could see that." You know?
Matt, wait till you have kids.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I
Yeah,
can
I
only
feel like
I've
imagine.
Isaac,
never
you're
seen my
exploring.
children's faces.
Mm.
Mhm. I feel,
Yeah.
Isaac,
So,
you're exploring that emotional piece more in recent years, and I'm so glad you're
for
making
sure.
room for that. Yeah.
For sure. Well, we have different strategies that work for us under different periods of time. Also,
Mhm.
evolutionarily, we go through different phases that serve different, purposes from an evolutionary biology basis or whatever. And so, I think when you're in the like rush, 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 go out there, form your own tribe, like it's easy to just kind of say, okay, look, head down. You're luckier than everyone else around you. Get things done. But now, with the luxury of some experience, hopefully some wisdom, certainly with my kids around, you know, it it's important to open up and, like you said, dare enable some room in my life for the sadness and the frustration or whatever, like everyone has. And
Yeah.
I struggled with this but and idea that I
Hmm.
just kind of alluded to. In my mind, it almost seemed like to say I'm having a really hard day today, sight wise, and I'm a little depressed about it, and I wish I could engage in this experience with my children with sight. For a long time, that to me, I would answer that with a yeah, but wait a minute, but stop it, don't go there because you're one of the half the people in the world live on $1 a day and all that and yada yada yada. Um, and it's only recently that I've realized it's not a but, it's an and.
Right.
Uh, which has frankly, to Darius' point, has thrown me for a bit of a loop in recent years because all of a sudden I find maybe I'm mourning things that I sort of didn't take the time to do along the way.
Hmm.
You were also thrust into the limelight. I mean, achieving like wildly successful things, and you were like in this like inspiring mode. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that was part of it. You
There,
kind of
no
if
doubt.
became
you've
this
got
sort of
all of these
like,
other achievements happening, you don't feel like you should say, "Well, but there are these,
Right, right, right,
there's this
right.
part that's hard," and you kind of almost have to have the hero face on a little bit.
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess that's true to an extent. Yeah.
Um, all right.
Although
Well, actually,
I challenge the use of the word hero and
well, sure.
as it relates. I mean, hero implies someone. I'm picturing like like a comic book hero. Very rippled and well put together, and very strong
Well,
and all that. That's not.
we're all
I'm
blind
kind of
here.
like
You
a
can tell
keyboard
us whatever
hero.
you
I was
want.
gonna
I
say
mean,
exactly. A lot of blind
That's
listeners.
true. That's true.
Isaac is
uh,
like the spitting image of Liam Hemsworth.
oh, there we
Oh, good
go.
lord! I don't even know who that is. Is that bad?
He's just a hunky actor.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Now you have to go ask somebody if that was a compliment or
I
not.
know.
Actually, your kids will know. Your teenagers, but
Uh, huh,
Oh
huh.
gosh. All right. Well, switching gears. Obviously, both of you have had incredibly successful academic and professional careers. Um, see if I have all this right. Daria, you studied piano at New World High School of the Arts in Miami. Graduated from Harvard with a degree in psychology, and then went to Columbia School of Social Work for your MSW, and then decided to go on to Fordham Law School to get your law degree. Um, and then Isaac graduated from Harvard at 19 with a degree in mathematics. Harvard Law School, clerked for 2 Supreme Court justices just to, step it up a little bit. But I like, as you say, Isaac, probably what people are most excited about is your starring role on NBC's Saved by the Bell, the new class.
Yeah,
So, you guys haven't taken it
you're
easy
generous to
at
say the
all.
most. It's generally the only thing that people care about.
Oh gosh. So obviously neither of you have let RP slow you down. Um and what inspired both of you to go to law school?
Huh.
I took
Well,
a
our father
class
was a
on
lawyer.
a. Oh, sorry. You want to go? Yeah, exactly.
No,
It's
no, go
true.
ahead, go ahead.
I took a class on social welfare policy when I was getting my MSW,
Okay.
and I started thinking about law school. Our dad was a lawyer. Our mom had gone to law school when we were in high school.
Hmm.
But also, I figured I love school and I could push off real world life for another few years. So by that point, our parents were on to me. They were like, "All right, that's enough school. Like, get a job." And but Isaac, it was more of a real passion, I would say, right?
Yeah, I grew up going to work with my dad a lot. My dad was a lawyer, solo practitioner, hung out a shingle for himself out of law school. Was
Mhm.
ultimately became a very successful lawyer. Had sort of at its peak had 5 or 6 other attorneys working for him at his firm, and
Okay.
he was kind of like a pit bull litigator type. It was amazing. People would come to my dad with their problems, friends, family, obviously his paying clients. I distinguish because he never charged friends or family. And they would come with what seemed like these big problems, and my dad would turn them into opportunities.
Right.
Financial opportunities for
That's
everyone.
right.
And the results he would consistently produce for these folks, his clients, was amazing. And anyway, he had a very much an extremely powerful analytical sort of a problem solving mind, and yet it's sort of also married to a mind that was really not was able to sort of see past and around and through sort of constraints, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so you could never win an argument with my dad, by his design. You could never win a bet with my dad, by his design.
Right.
And so
well, you
I
have
just
to
figured
write the terms of the bet just perfectly.
No, I know, but he could always get around that.
There was a loophole always.
Always.
That's right. Always
He
leave something for yourself.
with his children, with his young children. He would literally do
Oh
things
yeah.
Go into a restaurant, pull a waiter or waitress aside, off to the side, and say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to order a Diet Coke, and I'm going to tell you I don't want any refills, but just keep hammering me with refills no matter what I tell you." And then he would bet us. He would say, "I bet you I'm only going to order one Diet Coke today, for lunch." And we said, "Pa, what are you talking about? You drink like 5 Diet Cokes for lunch." So you take the bet, and then all of a sudden, like halfway through lunch, you realize that even though my dad's turning down refills, they're coming fast and furious, and you feel like an idiot. Anyway, but so I always wanted to learn how to think like my dad. And so law school first for me was very much a way to learn a mode of thinking, not unlike math or computer science, or things I studied in college, just a different way of having a problem solving approach. So I sort of refer to it as my like joyride through law. I was blessed to go to Harvard Law, and then I worked for I had was probably will be the best job I'll ever have. When it's great, when it's kind of like one of your earliest jobs. But that was working for the Justice Department, where I got to litigate appeals on behalf of the United States and its agencies and the federal appellate courts across the country. And it was just like an amazing job. And then the Supreme Court clerkship, which you mentioned, which was amazing. And then I had to sort of quote unquote grow up in the field of law and get a real job. And I just sort of followed the herd and followed the money, frankly, into a job with a huge, ginormous law firm. At which point I was like, okay, and law is over for me. That was a really nice chapter.
You did not like that.
It went great, and good luck to lawyers worldwide. I'm going to do something else.
Right. Now, doing all of that, and in particular, my mind goes to working for justices on the Supreme Court. How are you accessing information? Was everything digital at that point, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, everything was digital.
Okay.
At that point, and I can't stress enough that I had a tremendous amount of help. So yes, I was the first blind person to clerk for the Supreme Court or whatever, but I also, had the full support of the library staff at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has its own library for the justices and their clerks who do a lot of research, as you might imagine.
Sure.
And so, the IT folks, the technology staff work with the library to be able to like take a brief or whatever that came in from one of the parties in the case, let's say, and sort of pretty quickly extract all the cases that were cited by that brief.
Okay.
And then download those for me and put them in a folder and the right thing. And so I had, a small army of folks who were helping ensure that I always had at my fingertips in digital format anything that I needed to access, which was amazing. I mean, the other thing that's amazing too is when you call a publisher and you're like, "Hey, this textbook of yours, I'd love a digital copy of it. I'm blind and I promise I won't send it to anyone." Like they'll laugh at you, right?
Right. Right.
But when it's the Supreme Court calling and they're saying, "Hey, this is,"
they don't laugh anymore.
Like a digital, they don't. They send it and they send it quickly.
Right.
So, I still have on my hard drive all these like legal treatises that are in like Microsoft Word format. That's like amazing because I can search them and I can actually access them or whatever.
That's incredible.
In my memory, though, you were helping them modernize along the way.
Well, right. So it was collaborative process to develop this sort of system that I speak of. And it was they were so excited about it, which just made it's just such a heartwarming, just such a beautiful thing about sort of the beauty of the beauty the human spirit can convey. The folks at the library were so excited about it. In particular, the woman there who was leading the project, she wound up writing like a whole article about what we did and how we did it and whatever, that was published in what I'm told is a pretty legitimate, prestigious journal for librarians. Um, and so, yeah, so it was cool. We did we did do something a little different there, I guess, that was noticed.
Sure. Now, Daria, what got you started looking at doing social work? I know we met in one of, I don't remember, was I in your first teen telesupport group?
You were in my first teen telesupport group.
So what got you going in that direction?
I love working with young people and with teens. And after law school, I was an elementary school counselor for years at a New York City school that was failing. I worked for an organization called Partnership with Children. They would place social work teams in schools that were failing. So that was great. And then I had two kids back to back, 18 months apart. And I got a call one day. I met my commission for the blind social worker to look for services for myself. I wasn't working at the time.
Sure.
And I met her, and then she called and she said, the Lighthouse Guild, runs these telesupport groups. One of the facilitators had a terrible, medical situation and had to leave. They're looking for someone. Can you come in and interview? And I remember telling my mom, of course I can. I have like two babies, 18 months apart. And she was like, of course you can and you should. Like what, like you need to like have meaning and a job, and do something. So I'm really glad I listened to my mom's advice that day. And I met the head of the program and they hired me like on the spot. And now it's like over 17 years later. And it's been honestly just such an incredible experience. I feel like I get more out of it than the group members.
As always, like listen to mom, right?
Listen to mom. Well, that's a shout out to mom.
Well, I will say, as your sibling, I did notice you said, I'm really glad I listened to mom that day.
Exactly. I'm
there
pretty
was
stubborn.
The assertion of those two words.
See, he has the lawyer mind.
Isaac is telling on you.
Exactly. Isaac's getting me in trouble here. I'm trying to give a nice shout out and get some points. You're being honest.
Typical lawyer.
Isaac,
typical lawyer.
Well, I'll point out another thing. Isaac is a guest speaker for my groups every year. He kindly says yes, and in my mind, he's just loving that.
One day a year.
Exactly.
One night a year. Yeah.
And then I learned from his wife that he sees it as like going to the dentist once a year. And I was like, wow, that's something he has to do every year. He has to say yes to his sister. No, I'm teasing. You do a lot of work in the community. That's right. That's right.
I am now in one of her groups because Daria started a group for blind parents.
Right.
And I said, whoa. I mean, if you ask me to be a speaker to that one, I mean, I'm barely figuring it out myself. So I'd love to learn on that one. So I actually joined that group. We meet on Monday.
Yeah,
what all groups do you have now, Daria?
Well, the two, mainly, the teen high school groups, but we also just launched a group for blind parents.
Okay.
And a group for people who are sighted, who have a blind partner.
Okay.
But it's not for the couple. It's just for the sighted person. So that's been really interesting to hear that perspective. I feel more like a voyeur in that group. we have several sighted partners in our family. So
right.
But these group members are very open about the hardships of being married to someone who's low vision or blind. Just like how it's it's tricky to navigate when you need to help, when you shouldn't help, all those kinds of issues that are.
Well, and we talked a little bit about, finding someone who kind of looks past it, but just like we should have days where we can say it's really hard not to see, we have to understand, I suppose, for them too. It's not always easy, so.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Gosh. All right. So just kind of the one other thing I was gonna ask, just because I was curious, from my perspective, starting so young, Braille has just been so important to me. learning. I mean, I started learning in first grade and really took off in third. And it's just been so important for me as a doing math or computer programming, things like that. And it's different for everyone's everyone has a different situation, and I can only imagine, losing your sight over time would be a factor. Have either of you learned Braille, and to what extent? Why or why not? Just kind of curious.
I
That's
learned.
a great question. Yeah.
I wish I knew Braille. I really do. And I've tried a couple times to dig into it, like the contracted Braille and all that and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never stuck with it. But I do read uncontracted Braille,
Sure.
um, which critically enables me to continue my uh, beloved uh, poker games,
There we go.
and buttons in an elevator and that kind of thing. But no, I mean, like you said, I mean, as with everything in life, it's easier to learn when you're younger, and especially with languages. And not
Right.
making excuses or anything like that, but just
Yeah.
the couple times that I've tried, it's just seemed like a long haul.
Yeah, it's different. It's I mean, my biggest thing is it's so hard to find a good teacher because that can make
Uh-huh.
such a difference.
Yeah.
Finding someone who knows it well and has an excitement about it can make it so much easier. I know the joke when
I
I
tried
was
to do
young.
it by myself, so maybe that's the problem.
So when I was young, my Braille teacher was, I think, in her 70s when I met her, living out on her own, kind of in the middle of nowhere up in Northern California. Um, and we always laugh because we would sit at her dining room table, and she'd have a Braille book there, and she'd be reading, trying to find a passage for me, slide it across the table, and go, "Look at this." And I'd reach over to find her finger.
Right.
So whenever somebody says, "Hey, did you see?" "Oh, I'm so sorry." "No, it's cool."
Yeah,
Exactly. We use visual terms. We're cool with that, right?
Exactly. Funny enough,
By the
her husband actually also went to law school, but he was born in, I think, 1916, and never could get anybody to hire him at that time.
Wow.
Oh well.
So there seems to be a trend with blind people going to law school. I feel left out now.
It's never too late, Matt.
Nope.
Yeah, I don't like to
Especially if
read
you know
quite that
Braille,
much.
forget about
Yeah,
it.
seriously.
And Daria, I believe you haven't learned. Have you done much with Braille
No,
or?
so by the time I lost the ability to read print,
Right.
like regular print, I would say it was after law school,
Okay.
in my 20s. Not that I couldn't have learned Braille, but by then a lot of the Audible and all those
Right.
technologies were booming
For sure.
and seemed a heck of a lot easier. I mean, I'm pretty in
Fair enough.
awe that you read Braille, let's put it that way. So I've never even
Well, they're
tried.
different tools, and I mean, I think for myself, just doing software development and things like that, I find Braille to be so important just because you're nitpicking every character, so it'd be harder to listen to perhaps.
Interesting,
But
right.
they are all, I mean, great tools. I use all the same ones, so thank goodness we have all of them now.
Yeah, would you say electrical engineering would be a lot harder without Braille for you?
I mean, I spent college with, when the accommodations group at Stanford would Braille the textbooks, they'd have all the diagrams and, circuit schematics and tables. And I, I had some that were, I would describe them as scrolls. I took one to the professor's office and held it up at my head and dropped it, and it hit the floor and rolled. Um,
Wow.
and he asked me how I read it, and I said, "Well, thankfully the house I'm living in has a pool table, so I take it down there and put balls on the corners to hold it flat." Um, but
Oh
I
wow.
can't imagine working with diagrams and things without that. Um, but it's different. I've known other, obviously both of you, and then other blind people who, it just hasn't fit what they were doing, or timing, or whatever. There's all kinds of factors, but very cool.
Now I want
Awesome.
to learn
Well,
Braille, actually. This is what I'm thinking.
there we go. Awesome. Well, I guess, Daria, where can people find information on the support groups and things like that?
Oh, well, thanks for mentioning that. On the Lighthouse Guild website, you can find a ton of information about all of these they're totally free telesupport groups.
Awesome. And then Isaac, I'll just refer people back to your TED Talk, and then your book, which I think was Eyes Wide Open, correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. This was awesome.
Matt, it's an honor to call you a friend. Both of you guys are totally inspiring in my book, so this has been very fun.
Awesome. And Isaac, I think we need to connect more, because reading your book, I think we've got a lot of ideas that line up pretty darn well.
I love it. I love it, man. Let's do it.
Cool. All right. Thank you, guys. If you would like to learn more, go to defendingvision.com. And if you enjoyed the show, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Thanks for listening.